This will be the last episode before the finale of reassembly and reveal. And yes, the last parts we need to clean and put back together are the brakes. But before we do that, I need to show you something about the chain. We also need to take our pedal out of the evapo-rust and put it back together. And I have to show you a special item I was able to recently acquire. That's what's happening on this episode of Featherstone Bicycles. And the mystery item is the complete 2-volume set of the Schwinn bicycle service manuals. It did not come in this binder. It actually was just all of the guts of all of the various parts, all the various pages, and it did not have this cover for volume 1, so I added that. Obviously it didn't have the cover, but that's what the cover of the binders look like. There were 2 of them, as you can see from there. And while bicycle repair is essentially a pretty easy thing once you've been doing it a while, it is nice to see how the engineers at Schwinn would tell the service technician how exactly to disassemble something and then how to reassemble it. And of course, it's got all the exploded diagrams of the various components. A couple of interesting things about this book. One is, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know that I'll now be able to refer to parts by their correct name. Or at least what Schwinn thought the part name should be. The other thing is that the very first section is about the service department. And it has a whole thing in here about how the shop should look, how to treat the customers, how to deal with complaints, how the shop should be organized. It's got little floor plans here, whether it's a 500 bike a year shop, and that is for sales, or 1,000 bikes or 2,000 bikes or more. So pretty interesting stuff that Schwinn had thought out for all of its dealers and service technicians. At any rate, this was a great find. I basically just walked into it, and I had been thinking about acquiring a set of these for quite some time, but they're very expensive online. They're anywhere between $160 and $200, and that just didn't seem to be worth it. I actually picked this up for no charge. So what I wanted to show you about the chain is that we had this stuck pivot point pin in solvent for days, and no luck. It is just even more stuck than it was before. So the way we're going to solve this problem is, I have a piece of chain here, and it's the same size links and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this on this piece. basically this is what's going to happen. We're going to push this pin. We're going to take this pin all the way out of here, of this. And so we're left with an outside link and an inside link. Because here we have an outside link and an inside link. So we're going to take this pin all the way out. We're going to push this pin through so that we can remove this inside link, but not push it all the way through so that we can get it back in. And then we're going to take this pin all the way out because we've got a pin here, and then we'll be able to push that pin through. And that's basically how we're going to fix that problem. I promise we are going to get to the brakes in this episode. But first we need to take care of this pedal, which has been in evaporust for quite some time. Get that out of there. And take a look at it. Did a nice job on the rust. As you can see. I don't think, I'm going to compare it to the other pedal, but I don't think we might not even have to put it on the wire wheel. Yeah, there's a few sections here that can be shined up with that. I did also at the end there, because we had some evaporust inside the bearing here on the axle, and then where you can't get into the wire wheel down here, I was able to just pull a little bit of the end off a Q-tip and get down in there as best I could and around in here, just to get some of that excess evaporust out of there. And then what I'm going to do now is put a little grease on the paper towel, grab a little bit on my pick, and just work it down into those bearings. Again, I'm not equipped in this shop with the tools or the knowledge to try to take the pedal apart, because it's not pressed on, but it's bent over. And I just fear that if I was to bend those tabs back and take this all apart, I wouldn't get it back exactly the right way, and the pedal might not either function correctly or might not look like it was original. And I also worry, that feels a lot better now. I also worry that I guess I could heat them up before I bent it over, but if I didn't, heat them up and I bend it over and then bend it back, you know, the more you do that, the more you're at risk that that's just going to crack off there. And then of course you're totally, you're totally out of luck at that point. So you may recall back to the, let me move you a little bit here. Back to, it was either the first episode where I was taking everything apart or the second episode, but I was pointing out that the cables here, because of the kinds of stops that these are, these look like the original cables. And, you know, other than needing to be cleaned up a little bit, they're in great shape and the housings are in good shape. So I'd like to leave it all original. So I'm going to have to work around this. That stop is going to keep that from coming out of here, but we'll be able to deal with it. So everything looks like it's here. So let's get to work and start taking this apart and cleaning them. Careful observers may have noticed while I was trying to finagle this whole operation on the wire wheel that the end here got caught by the wheel and it pulled the cap off perfectly. So no fraying or anything, found the cap on the floor, which was a miracle in and of itself. And I'm just going to go ahead and reuse the cable, and allowed me to actually get the parts a little bit cleaner since now it was all apart. And one of the last things we'll do here as far as cleaning is put a little solvent or all-purpose cleaner if you don't have any solvent, on some steel wool and rub it around the cable housings. So I just tried pulling the other cap off the other cable and it worked. So we'll be able to use that as well. Keep that there. And so I'd like to do the brakes one at a time. Even though I now have the service manual, old habits are hard to break. So I use the old brake as a model to guide me in putting the brake, the just cleaned brake, back together. And I am going to shine this up a bit. All right, here we are. Everything is all cleaned up. A couple of things to note. Even though on the front brake, when I took that screw out of that lever and noted that I needed to keep track of the little black spring, I went ahead and took this one apart and didn't keep track of it. And sure enough, I found it on the floor, luckily. The other thing was, now that I have the service manual, I looked in there to see, because when I took the brakes apart, and I've done this in the past, noticed that there seemed to have been grease in there or something. The service manual actually says a little thin coat of oil in between each of the arms. And so I used the Phil's Tenacious Oil because that'll be a little bit thicker and better suited for that. So everything's cleaned and all ready to go, and we are set for season 5 finale, which will be the next episode. Thanks very much for sticking with me on this one, and I hope to see you for the season 5 finale next time on Featherstone Bicycles.